to the Real Results Show, where we feature real health coaches and health practitioners getting real results for their clients and themselves. Now, you might be noticing I am not Piper Gibson, and that is unfortunate. She is no longer with us, but they did pass the baton to me. Now, I got to be honest, I heard rumors that they called like 1,000 different practitioners. One's got to take their grandma to the library every Wednesday, and others got meetings. And they finally got to me. They said, "Hey, kid, you got a webcam?" I said, "Yes." And they said, "Great, you're on." So I'm very excited to be here with you guys. Obviously, I'm just kidding. I am the host of the FDN Thrive podcast. My name's Evan Transu, a.k.a. Health Coach Ev. And now I'll be here doing the Real Results Show. It might not be too pretty this time or the next time, but I'm learning to navigate this program, and I'm super excited to interview our practitioners and get to talk about some of the results that they have. So we're here today with Carly Herter. I just got to interview her for the FDN Thrive podcast, and I'm super excited to talk about some things today. So Carly, thanks for being here.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me. This is exciting.
Yeah, and she was right on time, like better than me. So this was super helpful. You made my first video very easy. Now, let's start with a little bit about your background in the FDN course. When did you graduate, and how long did it take you to complete it?
So I graduated about 2.5 years ago, and it took me a full year. I'm a full-time mom, and I wasn't working full-time at the time. I was just a full-time mom, so it took me about a full year.
Okay, great. And when you were doing this, did you already have some kind of health coaching business beforehand, or was this just your first time getting into it?
No, I was a holistic health coach, but very part-time. It was mostly blogging, and I was working with clients, but nowhere near the level I am now.
Okay, awesome. So did FDN kind of allow you to transition into that, or was it just the inspiration for it?
Oh no, FDN put me on a whole different level with clients and working with people. It's amazing.
Very cool. Now, when you were going through the course, and I know I had kind of touched on this before, but you found a lot of different things that were really useful. I know that some of the lab tests were helpful for you. So what were some of the things that you were maybe finding as you were going through the course that were super helpful to your own health?
Oh my gosh, the labs, first and foremost, that the acronym DRESS. It's such simple things, but they really make such a huge impact. So focusing on the things that we have control over: diet, rest, exercise, supplements, stress. Those are huge components to healing, and things that I always thought that I was focused on, but not as much as I could have been.
Okay. And one of the things that we actually use in the course, Carly just mentioned DRESS, and that is kind of our flagship acronym. It's diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation. And one of the things that we do in diet is we have a check record sheet. Now, this is such a great tool for anyone that is either on their own journey health-wise or a practitioner to use with their clients. It really doesn't matter. So as the host of FDN Thrive, I want you to drop the word thrive in the chat, and we can actually send you that diet check record for free. We'll happily send it over. Very useful tool. Sometimes the simplest stuff is actually the best. The lab tests are great, but if you don't have these basics down, it's really kind of useless to get into the more advanced stuff, and that's why we cover both. So drop the word thrive if you're interested in that. Now, who is your ideal client, Carly? Like, what's the ideal person that you look to work with?
Someone healthy. Kidding. No. You know what? I'm niched down right now to basically just Lyme and gut healing. I was kind of working with a lot of thyroid and autoimmunity when I first got out of the FDN gates, because that's what I was focused on with my health.
Sure.
Lyme has always been the backbone of my issues. So my passion lies with Lyme right now.
Okay. And now this is cool because for me taking over the Real Results Show, we're going to be transitioning. Now, if you're someone that normally watches every single week, we're typically talking just about maybe the business sides and the course itself, but we're going to be talking a lot more about the results that the individuals actually got on this show now, which is super fun. And that's just to help, bring recognition to our FDN Thrive program. That's basically the program for the consumer, right? Whereas the FDN course is the people like myself and Carly who really are looking to start their own businesses and get those deeper results for clients. That's the perfect place to go. Whereas FDN Thrive is a wonderful place that anyone can kind of go to learn more about this stuff. And so since we are taking that route, it means that on this show now, we get to do a little more in-depth kind of dive, I guess, into some of these topics. So I think it is awesome to start out with Lyme. I don't know nearly enough about it. I kind of told you that on the podcast that we did recently. So let's just start there. Why is Lyme such a big deal? Because if you ask the average person what Lyme disease was, if they even know what it is, they'd say, oh, that's that little thing you get from a tick, and maybe it makes your face get that little droopiness, or you get sick, you take an antibiotic and you're done. Why is it not that simple?
There's usually a perfect storm going on. It's never really just about the Lyme. There's so much going on, and Lyme makes the immune system and the system itself just super dragged down to where everything else becomes so problematic. Testing is so poor, so that's why, you know, people are coming into these chronic Lyme stages and they're stuck. They can't get out. So acknowledgement of what's going on at the start, and then learning tools to help get your way out. It's just, there's so many myths out there and so many different ways to go about Lyme, and there's really very few success, ways to go about it. So, and everyone is so unique. That's why I love the FDN approach to health and healing, because it really does put a customized, focus on each person.
Sure. And now, obviously, at FDN, well, I shouldn't say obviously, but some of us are doctors that graduated the course, and maybe we have the ability to diagnose things. But, I don't have the ability to diagnose things. You don't either. So when you're working maybe with a doctor or something, what is the thing that people look for to actually diagnose Lyme? Because one of the things that's been scariest to me when I'm reading about this stuff is there's not necessarily a great way to even diagnose it. And a lot of people get completely missed. They fall through the cracks. So I'm sure there's nothing that's foolproof, but what is the most reliable way to get a diagnosis if Lyme is suspected?
So one of my doctors told me once this, and I completely see it. If there's multi-systems off in the body, like you're having endocrine issues, you're having brain fog and neurological issues and pain and, digestive issues, chances are it's Lyme.
Okay.
So a lot of the check sheets that a lot of the Lyme doctors use have a lot of those same questions. And one of my doctors once said, most illnesses are acute. It's like, it's one targeted area. When it comes to Lyme, it targets the entire body most times. And so, I don't tell a lot of people, that come to me for free consult. I'm not one to say, oh, you sound like Lyme, but there's maybe been like 5 or 8 people that don't have a diagnosis when they come to me, and they're sounding very much like Lyme. I'll say, well, it sounds a little bit much like, kind of like Lyme, but, we can, let's investigate and, rule some other things out. But yeah, the testing is so poor, which is so unfortunate.
So what is the best way? Is it like a blood test, or, I really don't actually know that.
Yeah. So there's a few really good, not great blood tests that are on the market. They're not covered under insurance. They're pretty expensive.
Of course.
So, and they're still not that reliable. I've had people take an Diagnostic test, which is my favorite Lyme test out there, and they're negative. And then they find out like 3 years later, they really do. They are CDC, Center for Disease Control positive. So, it can be tricky. But a lot of times that I do find it's not always about just killing off the Lyme anyway. It's about taking care of everything else so the immune system can handle Lyme. So a lot of people that come to me, I don't even necessarily test them for Lyme unless they're like really, really, really sick and, not able to leave their house. And I'll be like, well, let's go maybe suggest a test. And a lot of times it can work itself out, which was my case. My body was able to work itself out. So our bodies are amazing.
Yeah. And that's really interesting that you're talking about this very serious thing that makes people sick all the time, but that might be the last thing to focus on, because you want to look at all the other things. And that's why something as simple as the diet is going to really matter for people. Now, I'm oversimplifying it because I'm sure there's many factors involved. But guys, remember that diet check record sheet. If you're just tuning in, this is something that we believe any practitioner can use. Anyone out there who is just a consumer of this information on their own healing journey can use. Super essential to the FDN course. So it's our diet check record sheet, and we'll send that to you for free. Just drop the word thrive in the comments below, and we'll make sure to get that to you. Even if you're checking this out after after the live broadcast, we got no problem sending it over. So just drop the word Thrive in the comments. Now, since you are not necessarily focusing on Lyme directly, are you still acting as if they have it? And what I mean by that is when you're using certain maybe antimicrobials or just, I guess, herbals in general, are you using stuff that would be specific for Lyme? Or is this really just like, okay, I know Lyme's a part of their story, but it's a total afterthought?
Yeah, no, for sure. The ones that usually the limeys, I call them the limeys, they're really super sensitive. So they can't handle usually, you know, like a biocide or just like, you know, really comprehensive concoction of herbs. It's really hard for them to tolerate that because they're just overly histaminal and just sensitive in general. Their livers are overwhelmed. So I take a very different approach with them. I work I'm pretty much focused primarily up front on detoxification, extreme detoxification, and then really, really, really simple calming supplements and sometimes single herbs here and there. And I love to do specific testing up front to find out what their sensitivities are so I can break down the herbs even more. Specific, tailored to their bodies. And then from there, everyone's so different and customized that from there, usually after my phase 1 with them, we go into to the phase 2, and that's when I call it the kill phase. And it's not just ever about the Lyme. We're going to go for the other things too. But usually by that point, they can handle it. Their bodies have calmed down. Their, the detoxification system's not as overwhelmed, and things start flowing a little easier and they're not reacting so much.
Sure. And I'm loving what you're saying about like, yeah, there's other things involved that we're going to need to address too. I think it is just one piece of the puzzle because to me, it's like, I feel like so many of, I don't want to say our ancestors because it's not that long ago, although we do know Lyme was around thousands of years ago. It's just something as simple as the Native Americans or whatever. Like they all had to have this. I just don't understand how they wouldn't. I was camping outside a lot at a family member's or my parents' house really at this summer. And every single night, because I know this stuff, thankfully, with FDN, I know at least to look out for Lyme because of people like you. And every night I would scan myself. I would take off like, my socks or whatever outside the tent, get in and scan my feet to make sure nothing got in. Carly, I'd say I was out there for about 60 nights, 5 to 10 times. There was deer ticks brought in with me into the tent. I got them off and that was good to go. I missed one that I woke up to at one point. So they are everywhere. And my point in saying that isn't to scare people. It's just like, how was there ever a time where people weren't walking around with this constantly? And if it's that debilitating to everyone, well, I don't think we ever would have made it as far as we did with humans. So I think our body probably should be able to handle it. Now, that's a really good clue too, by the way, that you mentioned with people being super sensitive to things. When you're talking about that initial detox, not that we have to go into your secret sauce necessarily, but I am curious if these people are sensitive and they react highly to a lot of things, what is the process to gently detox them so that they don't just go into a huge reaction? Like, what's your approach with that?
Right. So mine, and I have it in my book too.
Oh, cool.
I use, and I learned this from, wasn't even a doctor. It was just some blogger online, but she had such a big following and I was like super intrigued by what she was doing. She was drinking this like salt mixture. And this has been around, salt flushes have been around since the days of Jesus. Like they've been around for a long time. You don't hear about them because they're like pennies, like they cost pennies. Like, so you just take a tablespoon of salt, really good salt, in water. You drink it really fast on an empty stomach in the morning. And I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with me about this. I did every day for 8 months for a parasite cleanse and some other, things I was working out. And you drink 2 cups of water just to flush through, and then you have like, an hour in the bathroom. It's not pleasant, but you're not going to react because it's not a coffee enema. You're not going to have like any digestive issues, like some kind of, sometimes hydro cleanses might, produce. Herbs can sometimes cause these histaminal reactions. And that was my experience with all of that, with detoxing. I kept being told I have to detox, but I just couldn't handle it. I could handle the salt though. And that's what I'm finding with a lot of my clients. I've had large online cleanse groups doing them too. People react very well to them and they feel really, really rejuvenated afterwards. But it really starts, salt is also a natural antiseptic. So it plays a lot of different roles when you're doing salt flushing. You just have to make sure you're not on, just making sure you're on a clean, whole food diet and not like it might be too much salt. But if you're eating a really clean paleo whole food diet, it's not an issue unless, you have some other things going on, high blood pressure, whatever.
This is so cool. And I think it's probably my favorite part about being involved with FDN now is I've been here for 4 years and I'm still constantly learning stuff. I've never heard of that. That's interesting to me. It's something that I really wish I actually knew a while ago, because you had referenced Biocide. And for those out there that don't know, it's just a very powerful, clinically backed antimicrobial, bacterial, whatever. And ideally, you should be working up to like 5 drops 3 times a day. Well, I got to 1 drop 3 times a day. I'm breaking out. I'm feeling sick, flu-like symptoms. And I was already doing everything else. Like I was eating healthy, all this stuff. So it was always like one of those things that you're saying, oh, you need to detox, you need to detox. Well, I can't, because every time I try to, I just keep getting affected. So you had mentioned the paleo diet is, I'm sure you don't blanket statement this, but is that typically the route that you're going to recommend for most people? Like, do you find over the time that you've done this, that the paleo diet is more beneficial for most people than not?
I like it. It's beneficial for me. All of my clients are kind of on their own thing. I always tell people, follow your body's lead. Just make sure you don't have the big staples in it. So no alcohol, nuts, shellfish, processed sugar, gluten, and dairy. Like I always tell people, just cut those out for the time being. I don't care if you eat meat. I don't care if you just eat vegetables.
Right.
Make sure it's clean and leave the histamine producing foods out. Some people really thrive on meat type diet. Some just don't. And it really sometimes depends upon where you are in your healing journey. So I tell people, follow your body's lead. Is our biggest teacher, is our body and our symptoms. So, and it changes. Like for me, I went through a period where I did not thrive on meat. And I was really just strictly focusing on fruits and vegetables and, root carbs and stuff like that. Now I'm thriving on meat. I just feel like I have to have it.
Right. And it's so surprising, right? And I actually, at a time, I wanted to believe that a vegetarian thing would work better for me because, I'm not one of those people that goes out and hunts. I don't condemn that either, but it's not something that gets me excited. So I loved the idea of, oh, okay, I can be a vegetarian and be totally healthy. For me, not only subjectively, but objectively on my labs, it didn't work. I wasn't doing well. I wasn't healthy. And then I am someone who incorporated a lot more meat into my diet. I actually literally eat over a pound of meat every single day, a lot of beef normally. And after the first year of doing that, I'm always careful. Even though I felt good, I did my lab tests, and my labs at 25, or I guess it was 24 when I ran it, to be fair, at 24 years old were better than they were at 17. They were actually the best that they had ever been. So it's like, go figure, that's what works for me. What are some other tips, maybe just like, because I love the thing with the salt. That's not something I've ever heard of. So I'm kind of looking for maybe one more secret sauce tip that these people with Lyme or these chronic health issues can maybe use today that is pretty safe for most people, right? Like what is something that you use with most of your clients that's probably safe for anyone listening? Of course, not advice. You always get checked with your doctor first, but off the record.
So, okay. So the salt flushing is number one. The second one is I highly suggest everyone I work to take a mediator release test, just so we can find out what you're reactive to, because that will really help me customize their herbs too. So me and a lot of my really super sensitive, so for me, I couldn't handle those big concoction, like already prepared herbal, medicines. I just couldn't handle, there's just too much in there I was reacting to. So what I have a lot of my clients doing, and I did, was I went to a really good high quality herbalist and I told them, get in individual packages X, Y, and Z for you. Things that I knew would target some of the health blocks or infections or pathogenic infections that they were dealing with at the time, not just the Lyme. And let's just take one at a time. You can fill your own pill containers, or you can just put a tablespoon of water and then take it that way. And sometimes that's more than enough. And I still do that. I still really, I don't know if I have PTSD going on still. So that's how I take my herbs. I usually take them in individual. I put them together myself. And I'll put them in a big jar and just mix it up and then just spoon it in my cup at night before I go to bed with hot water. That and, what else would I say? I think those are the two big ones.
Okay, those are great. I mean, that's perfect. And guys, by the way, if you're just tuning in, we're giving away our diet check record sheet. So this is basically a way that anyone out there, whether you're a practitioner or just someone who consumes this information, you can literally scientifically in your own house calculate the best kind of foods for you and the best macronutrient ratios. Now, I'm a big believer that, our ancestors never counted macros, but since we have the ability to do that, it's actually kind of useful. And I found it really cool. There are things that work for me, like Carly and I were just talking about. I mean, I eat over a pound of meat a day normally. That probably would not work for certain other people. So it's really important to use those kinds of sheets and track, wow, I felt good, an hour after this meal, or I felt terrible 2 hours after this one. So just drop the word thrive in the comments and we will make sure that gets sent to you. Carly, I saw that you brought up your book. What is your book called and what was the inspiration for that? Because this is cool.
So when conventional healthcare fails you, and the inspiration, I really wanted a tool. So I failed miserably with conventional healthcare. I just did. I had so many things going on and I just kept getting told that I was healthy. It was anxiety and depression. They put me on a lot of those medicines. And I just was the sickest I'd ever been and terrified. I felt alone. I was super scared because I had all these doctors for a few years. I think it was 2.5 years until I got my Lyme diagnosis. And still, even then, the doctors didn't know what to do with me. I went from doctor to doctor then too. Even Lyme doctors. I mean, there's a lot of Lyme doctors out there that aren't really in it for, to really actually heal. They just don't maybe understand the disease as much as we would like them to.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
But so when I started my healing journey and I found all these tools that really helped me and helped me, get from, the sickest I'd ever been to a thriving mom running my own business, I, just blogging about it wasn't enough for me. And, I wanted a tool, a resource to be able to get out there. I have all my nuggets in here. I have basically the protocol I use for all of my clients is in here. It's kind of like a little guide and diary to, basically DIY it yourself. I even have supplements and herbs and detox methods that I use, multiple different ones. And I'm super proud of it. I'm really excited to get it out there.
Well, you should be. I mean, this is awesome. And just to be clear, because I love the title and I think I know who you're targeting here, is this something that I started this health journey 7 years ago. If I was interested in this, I didn't know a dang thing, and I'm going back 7 years ago. Could someone like me grab this book and actually get use out of it, or would it be too much? Is it for a more advanced person?
I think it's pretty basic.
Okay.
I'm pretty good. I explain, from basically A to not all to Z, but it's a really good. I share my story and then I kind of work my way through why things are happening, where your symptoms might be coming from. It is kind of, science-y too. So I try and I talk about that in here. I'm not really big on, the science-y, scientific type words. I'm really kind of a basic person. So I kind of really stick to the basics and get down to the nitty-gritty. And I really don't sugarcoat anything in here.
Okay, well, I think that is something that this industry genuinely needs. It's not like I've read every book, but I mean, I'm familiar with most of the bestsellers, and they are great. But if you are not someone like us that is willing to go like the practitioner level, it's kind of intimidating to read. So I think this is a really well-titled book. First of all, it's like just catchy. I want to read it now. I can't wait. And it's really cool to have something that can be brought to the average person, because that's what we need. We need more awareness around this. There is no shortage of people who need this work. So I'm never in competition with anyone else. FDN Thrive's not in competition, right? We want as many people knowing about this stuff as possible. So Carly, as we wrap up here, where can people find you?
So carlyherterhealth.com is my website. I'm on Instagram as Carly Herter and Instagram Carly Herter Health, and then Facebook just Carly Herter. And this book is available on Amazon. Okay,
this is out now. Oh, yep. Great. I didn't realize that. Okay. So I will, I'm not just one that says this, by the way. I will go grab your book right after this. I'm excited. All right. Guys, well, hopefully I got to go check after this. Hopefully this went well and the stream came up good. I could see some people commenting. Just as a final thing, if you just tuned in late, you can drop the word thrive below in the comments and we will send you our diet check record sheet for free. This is a staple with any FDN practitioner or FDN Thrive client. I will be your new host for at least a little bit if they don't kick me off. My name's Evan Transu, aka Health Coach Ev. And of course, we've been talking to Carly Herter. Thank you so much for sharing your information with us today, Carly. And I'm looking forward to reading the book.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun, Evan.